It feels like the global stage is getting more chaotic by the day, right? But for one particular group of powerful nations, all that chaos, well, it looks a whole lot like an opportunity.
Okay, so the big question is, can this alliance really challenge the whole US-centric global economy? Is this for real? To figure that out, we've got to dig into what the BRICS bloc is actually trying to build here.
All right, first up, a world of opportunity. Let's kind of set the stage. What is going on in the world right now that's giving a group like BRICS this renewed sense of purpose? And maybe, just maybe, a real shot at changing things?
I mean, just look at the headlines. You've got trade tariffs flying around, sovereign threats, a whole lot of uncertainty in Eastern Europe, and people are asking some pretty serious questions about the US federal debt. All of this just creates a climate of, well, unpredictability. And that is the key word. For the BRICS nations, this isn't a crisis. It's an opening, a huge one.
So let's meet the original crew, the OG5. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Together, these guys were already an economic powerhouse. But they knew. If they really wanted to shift the global balance of power, they had to get bigger.
And that's exactly what they did. They expanded. By bringing in energy giants like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, alongside other key regional players like Egypt and Iran, suddenly the bloc's economic and political weight just shot through the roof.
And when you actually look at the numbers, man, it's pretty staggering. We're talking about a group that now controls roughly 45% of the world's population. They produce about 44% of all the oil, and their slice of the global economic pie, around 36%. So you have to ask, right, with numbers like that, why aren't they already running the show?
To answer that question, we really have to look at their endgame. What's the grand vision here? What's the glue that's holding this incredibly diverse group of countries together? And, this isn't some plan they cooked up overnight. Nope, they've been quietly laying the groundwork for more than a decade now. A really big move was back in 2014 when they launched their own new development bank. This was a direct shot, an alternative to the Western-led World Bank and the IMF.
And that brings us to the core of it all, the grand vision, geopolitical independence. What they really want is to create this self-sufficient club of countries, a club where they can trade, they can invest, they can do their own financing, all without relying on the US dollar or any outside influence. You can almost think of it as kind of like a less integrated European Union.
It's a really bold vision for sure, but there is a massive, massive hurdle standing in their way. And it's not coming from the outside. It's the rivalries and the deep divisions inside the group itself. Okay, so take a look at this. The European Union, it has real teeth, right? It's got the European Commission, the European Parliament, a Court of Justice. These are bodies that can actually make and enforce rules that every member has to follow. But BRICS, it's more like a loose association. There's no big overarching authority to make sure everyone stays in line. And that lack of a central authority, that's a huge problem. Why? Because a lot of these members are straight-up rivals. I mean, just look at the two biggest players in the whole group, China and India. They're constantly competing over trade, over investment projects, even over who has more influence inside their very own new development bank. And hey, bringing in new members didn't fix this. If anything, it just imported a whole new set of problems. You've now got two new members, Egypt and Ethiopia, who are locked in this incredibly tense dispute over a dam on the Nile River. We're talking serious threats being thrown around. So the question is, how on earth do you build a cohesive team out of that? Okay, so we've got internal rivalries. But that's not all they have to deal with. On top of everything else, they are facing immense pressure from the outside. Because let's be real, whether they like it or not, Western powers, and especially the United States, still hold a lot of the cards. They have some powerful economic levers they can pull. You see, most BRICS members have these deep trade relationships with the US and Europe that they can't afford to walk away from. So the threat of sanctions, or on the flip side, the promise of a sweet market deal, that is still a very, very big stick to wield. And this quote just nails the core motivation, doesn't it? Imagine your boss changes every month, and some of them threaten to fire you just for looking at other jobs. You'd start looking for an alternative, right? Even if it meant a pay cut, just for some stability. Well, that's exactly how many of these countries view the US, as an unpredictable partner. And BRICS is them looking for that alternative. So, let's bring it all together for our verdict here.
You've got this massive ambition on one side, and then you have all these internal and external challenges on the other. So where does that leave us? Is this whole thing really the dawn of a new world order?
Probably not. At least, not in the way you might think. The best way to understand BRICS right now isn't as a group that's about to take over the world. It's much more like an insurance policy. It's a plan B. It's a way for these members to make sure they can still be self-sufficient and trade with each other, even if, or maybe when, they get sanctioned or cut off from the Western system. So in the end, it all really boils down to one huge question. Is their shared frustration with the West going to be strong enough to overcome all those deep-seated rivalries and competing interests? The answer to that question, well, it's not just going to decide the fate of BRICS. It could literally reshape the entire global economic map for decades to come.